continue our exploration of the K2500 or K2000, which are very similar. So for the next example, we're going to build a monophonic sound, and we're going to use 1 or 2 oscillators. So again, as per the previous examples, dial 199, which is our default program, which is a sawtooth by default. So if we press on edit, as a quick recap, basically our sound is built from key maps, so samples which are attached to a key map, and the key map itself is attached to a layer. So we have a key map here, and we can see the default sound is 151, the sawtooth sound. And then we have a layer for here, and we can see here layer 1 of 1. We can add multiple layers later on, but we'll start with that one. So sample attached to a key map, then to a layer, and then we have the algorithms, which are basically a set of data processing capabilities, so DSPs, and we have various arrangements. So if we go here and select algorithm 9, you may have some boxes currently selected. So just for the example, I'll make sure they're all at 0. Okay. So again, we have our sawtooth sound here. So the first thing we want to do is select the raw sound. So we already have a sawtooth sound, but this is coming from a sample. So as we mentioned in the previous video, there are also other ways we can do that. We can basically get the K2500 to generate its own oscillator waveform without using a sample and actually bypass the sample. So if we go to the second block from the left, where it says none currently, and we can select the various DSP functions here. And one that we have here, so you can see we have a pulse width modulation, which we'll probably explore in another example. We have a sine wave. And again, it's important to remind here that when you pick one of these waveforms here, it actually bypasses the sample attached to the key map. However, when you have the name with a plus at the end, that means it actually includes the original sample, so it plays both at the same time. And like here, so plus, it plays two sawtooth waveforms. So, which is quite interesting, because basically using one single layer, so one oscillator if you want, you can have multiple waveforms. So you could have a sawtooth here, and as the key map you could have a detuned sawtooth, or you could have a square, or you could have a piano sample or whatever. But the one we want in that example is just the sawtooth. So what it does now is basically bypasses the sample attached to the key map and just uses the sawtooth that is generated from the DSP. And you can't see it here, but I'm playing different notes and it plays the same tone every single time. So we need to edit that one. Press on edit, and here we need to adjust the key tracking. It is here, so we need to put it to 100 per octave. And now we can actually play notes. So that's the first thing we want to do. But as I mentioned at the start of this example, we are creating a lead sound in this example, and typically they are monophonic. So at the moment, this is a polyphonic sound, which is the default. So we need to move to common by pressing a couple of clicks on the right here. Select common, and here you can see that we have the option to make the sound monophonic. So if you press plus, and then we have legato as well, and we have portamento, and we have a rate, etc. So we're not going to worry about that for now, but we just switched it to monophonic, and now it is actually a monophonic sound. You can hear how it kind of glides from one note to the other. Right. So if we go back to our algorithm page, we now have a monophonic sawtooth. If we go to one of the other boxes, we can now apply a filter to that one, and if I press once on the plus sign, it moves to the low pass 2-pole resonant filter, and straight away you can hear the impact it has on the sound. So on that one, we can't, it's like a predefined low pass resonant filter. There are other kind of types of resonant filters on the K2500, but this one is kind of has a set resonance setting, and you can adjust the filter but not the resonance. But that for what we're doing, it's absolutely fine. So if we press more a couple of times, then we get to this function boxes that we can see here, and so we can see for the first one, also a DSP, we can adjust the pitch. The second one is empty, so there's nothing. The third one, we have our resonant filter, and we can apply the frequency. So if I press on that one, it takes me to the frequency box, the frequency settings, and now I can adjust my frequency. What I want to do in that example is assign the frequency to the modulation wheel. So I could assign it here to like an envelope or an LFO, but I just want it assigned to the modulation wheel. So I need to select modulation wheel here as the source, second source, and here I need to put the maximum depth, which will guide how much it will impact the filter frequency as you move the mod wheel up. So you can put quite a high value here, and you can hear the impact it has. So if I lower my filter setting, and now you hear the effect as I move the modulation wheel. So maybe I can even put a higher value. Okay, so that's the kind of basic structure of my sound, but it's not super exciting, but that's a start. So we have a monophonic sawtooth, which is generated not from a sample but directly by the DSP function, and we've applied a filter, a resonant filter to it, and we're modulating basically the frequency using the mod wheel. But if we want to have a bit of more of a kind of classic lead tone, then what we can do is add a second oscillator. Remember that here we're just working on one layer, and for the purpose of these videos I'll just call kind of layer or oscillator interchangeably. But so if we go click on more again a few times, we'll get to a page where we basically the layer functions, and we can create a new layer. We create a new layer from scratch. We can duplicate the layer. We can import a layer from different sound, which can be helpful as well, or we can delete the layer and start from scratch. Or if you have created more than one layer and you want to delete some, you can do it that way. But in this instance, what we want to do is we want to duplicate the layer. And that's important here as well, because one thing to remember is that on the K2500, you can't have DSP functions across multiple layers, to my knowledge. If I'm wrong, then please add a comment. But to my knowledge, you can't have like a filter, for instance, or an envelope that will be across multiple layers. I believe you can in the later PC 3 series, maybe the PC2, I'm not too sure, and probably then from the latest K2700. But I believe, I'm pretty sure in PC3 and PC4 you can do that, but not on the K2500. So if you want the exact same settings for like envelopes and filter settings and things like that, the easiest way to do it is basically to create your first layer, make sure you're happy with your settings, and then duplicate it. That way my second layer will have the exact same frequency setting than this one. Otherwise I would have to go and adjust them manually, which is not a massive effort, but you know, you still have to do it. Having said that, maybe that's a an effect you would want to have. So for instance, you can have 2 layers with slightly different filters or different filter settings affecting these layers differently. That's you know, can be part of the way you want to design your sound. But if you want the same filter setting across multiple layers, to my knowledge, the only way to do it is to make sure that you have the settings for each layer replicated, and duplicating the layer is the easiest way to do that. So let's do that. Click on duplicate, and it says layer 2 created, and now we can see that we have layer 2 of 2 here, and we can, by selecting here, clicking on the channel bank button, we can switch between the various layers. So now I have 2 sawtooths being filtered, but if I want to create my classic lead sound, typically what I want to do is adjust the pitch of the second layer to have a slightly detuned. So I can move to a pitch. Sorry, that box will only affect if there's a key map assigned. So in that case, we're bypassing the key map, so it won't have any effect. So I need to go to my saw box on my layer 2, press edit, and now I will adjust my the tone of that oscillator, the tuning of that oscillator. So if I want like 1 octave below the first one, I'll go -12. And if I want kind of a bit more detuned, now you can hear the slightly detuned. I can detune slightly the first one as well, so go to 1 and kind of detune slightly in the other direction. And I could adjust slightly differently, maybe have like -7 rather than -12. So anyway, then you can adjust your tuning the way you want. And equally, if I wanted a third oscillator, I could do the same and add a third layer, and I would create my third oscillator. So just finally, to add a little bit of polish, I'll go click on my more option again and just go to the effects section. You can see that I have an effect selected. There's the wet dry ratio is currently 0, so no effect at all. Because it's a lead sound, I may want to have a bit of say delay on it, delay big horn or room and delay, and I'll go to adjust and add a bit of delay. And now we have a bit of delay. So that's for our lead sound. Just wanted to go back to the common screen and explore a little bit the portamento setting. So at the moment there's no portamento applied, so we can switch that to on, and now we have portamento applied. There's a bit of crackling, but I think it's one of my cables that's a bit dodgy. And you can apply the rate here, but it's kind of opposite to usually you apply the basically the fastest. I think it is kind of reversed. So you can play with the rate. And an interesting feature, which I haven't seen on anything else, on any other synths that I have at least, is that attack portamento setting, which means that when it's on, it will kind of rise up or down on the first note. And that's quite unusual. So between notes, that's fine, but on the attack note, I haven't got that, I don't think, on my other synths. And I'm not too sure how it decides whether to rise up or down. It might be something related to the key. So maybe the higher you play, it goes up, and the lower it goes down. It kind of sounds, that's why what it does. It sounds like below middle C. It kind of goes down. Nothing on the B before, just below. Yeah. So I suspect that's the logic is probably defined in the manual. But anyways, just that was just a quick play with the portamento settings.